Hey everybody, I am Brandon.
And I'm Michael.
And this is Behind the Bulb. This is the next episode. And we're going to answer a couple of your questions today that you have submitted to us. And the first one is, why does it cost so much to make animation?
Yeah, why does animation cost so much? It's a great question. And when I try to explain it to people, I liken it to building a house. You've got to get an architect, you've got to plan a house, you've got to bring all the materials together, then you've got to build the house, then you've got to paint the house, and then you've got to furnish the house. There's a lot of steps and roles. And looking at animation, what that equates to is then you have somebody that writes a script. They're like the architect of the show. Then you have the designers who are creating character illustrations, and then they're creating, picking the colors, and then you have the modelers or the people that do the 2D characters, and then you have the riggers that put the bones in and decide how characters are going to move, and then you bring in the people that do the voices and the sound and the music, and then you add on the people that do the final editing. And I'm skipping steps, but as you can see, there are a lot of steps, so there are a lot of people involved. And ultimately, the reason it ends up costing a lot is just because there are a lot of steps and a lot of people involved, and that just equates to a lot of time and effort. It's a really engaged, creative process.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun, but there are so many disparate steps to animation. So many little things that you have to do. We watch an animated show, a cartoon or a 3D show, and it looks so simple. And that's really part of the magic, is that there a lot of time, effort, and money goes into making it look simple. But it's anything but. It's building a very complex thing, and any one little element of that complex system can affect everything else. One of the things that we try and head off here at Brainy Pixel is scope creep, and that's where things change and things can cascade in changes. So if you get into principal animation, for instance, and somebody decides, well, you know what, that dog character, he really needs to have a bent ear, or he really needs to have, a different, he needs to be smaller, he needs to be half as big as he is right now. Well, that can impact potentially every shot in the show. And so you have to go back to the beginning and pretty much start over again. And that's never good for budget or schedule.
And coming back, just to wrap back around to the house analogy, it would be as if you're about done building the house, and then somebody decided that they wanted to change the floor plan, or they wanted to, it's not just adding a room, right? They wanted to do something functionally different to the foundation or a primary component. And so getting all the steps right and taking the time to do that right really helps with the economy of animation. But nevertheless, lots of steps, lots of people involved.
And also, I think it's important to note that all these people are really highly trained people. They're not, you can't just go grab a guy off the street, and say, hey, come in here and create this 3D model for me, or animate this character. Those are really high-end skill levels, and I equate them often to very trained engineers that we have making our railways and our space stations and things like that. They're not a very inexpensive individual to employ. All those people have tons of training and a lot of specialized skills that go into creating really good animation, which is why we see lots of bad animation out in the world. But if you want to do it right, it's going to cost a fair amount of money. So yeah.
Oh, I think that's a good summary.
Yeah. And there was one other question. So we had two questions on Behind the Bulb today. And that was, what kind of animation do you most enjoy working with or in?
Yeah, great question. I really fell in love with animation as a kid, watching the Disney animations, and then VeggieTales came out with the new 3D computer animation, and that was right when I was coming out of college, and I was learning art, fine art, and this fantastic new world of computers and digital technology. I just got fascinated with computer 3D animation. And so I'd say my passion is for the 3D animation world. I've spent most of my time and effort learning to do that. Sometimes at the sacrifice of my drawing skills. I actually probably was better at drawing. I could have been better at animating 2D characters back when I was coming out of college, but I devoted all that time to 3D characters. And wanted to do, you know, Toy Story style things and VeggieTales kind of things.
And we didn't coordinate before. We didn't even talk about what we were going to answer. But actually, for me, I think it's 3D as well. So that was kind of my foray into this business, was working actually on Cubekins. And that was my first exposure, was 3D. But it was also incorporated a lot of motion capture and a lot of face capture technology. Mm-hmm. And I think that's some of the most fun stuff for me, primarily because I'm a bit of a junkie when it comes to coming up with an idea and then seeing that idea come to fruition quickly. And when you have mocap and face cap, you can do that almost instantaneously in some cases. And that really cranks my tractor. That really keeps me involved and interested in the project. Things where we have to wait months to see them, often I lose a little bit of my fire. So I would say mocap and face cap is really the stuff that I enjoy the most, because it's so quick to see the product, and then you can iterate and change.
Mm-hmm. And the speed, I think, was something that appealed to me too. It turned out that actually the promise of speed in 3D didn't, you know, you can see it fast with mocap, you can move a character very quickly, but to get quality performance,
that's true.
It didn't really materialize in the way that I think all, you know, animators were expecting it to. It turns out to be a lot of work to polish a 3D character's movements to where they're believable. And I see a lot happening right now, Brandon, with AI and a lot of animated, you know, faces and animated characters, and they all look really creepy and a little hideous right now. Maybe in the future that will happen, but I'm curious how that's going to go.
Yeah. So. But that's a question for another show. So if you want to know about AI and what we think about AI, and maybe even what we're doing with AI, if anything, no spoilers, ask that question, respond, you know, wherever you're watching this video. Let us know what you want to know about us, Michael and Brandon, the guys behind the bulb. And until the next episode, we will talk to you soon, and be blessed.